So you know what, it may be a while before we get to gaze upon the main menu of a brand new Mass Effect experience, as over the past 24 hours or so, a rumour has been circulating that though we have been getting regular, if not annual, teasers regarding the Mass Effect game in development at BioWare, the game may not reach us until 2029. Let's dive into it. So I was initially made aware of this by an article published by Insider Gaming, and that article is written hinging on the words of a man named Jeff Grubb, who's quite a reliable insider when it comes to information. He doesn't leak things, he just tends to be quite on it, and in the limited times that my interests have crossed with his, the information he does divulge tends to come good. For example, I believe he was the bloke who got everybody worked up into a frenzy over the Mass Effect remasters coming before they'd been announced, and then lo and behold, there they were. I can't speak to his overall reliability because I don't necessarily know too much about that, but when it comes to BioWare, he does seem to have a pretty good idea where he's coming from. So he said something in a segment of Game Mess Mornings, which is a podcast of some description, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. Basically, Jeff Grubb stressed that even though there are teasers being posted by BioWare, for example, every N7 day we're getting something new, and that has been the case since this new Mass Effect was announced back in 2020 at the Game Awards. Pretty much the year after, N7 day, November the 7th, and the years that have followed, there has reliably been a teaser on that date. Despite that, the game might not come until 2029. I guess the logic in that is BioWare's current major project is Dragon Age Dreadwolf, a game announced in 2018 and according to Grubb's estimations, likely won't see release until at least next year. I don't know much about that, I'm not a massive Dragon Age fan. I do keep intending to play them, but I just never get round to it. I'm a very busy guy, I guess, but it needs doing. I would like to do it, but effectively Jeff Grubb went, the earliest you'll probably see that is next year. So that would be 6 years from the actual announcement of the game with its title to being a complete product, and that's probably with a couple delays in there. But this is what Grubb said that means for Mass Effect.
This game is just nowhere near coming out.
Oh, no chance.
I was told, so when they announced, or when they, revealed Dragon Age Dreadwolf in 2018, this is similar in terms of timeline, where that was announced in 2018, and we're not getting that game till maybe next year. So now do the math for that, and we're talking 2029 for Mass Effect 5.
To clarify, I think that anybody with half a brain cell knew that this game just simply wasn't right around the corner. It was never going to be next week or next year. It's going to be at least a few years off still. And based on track record and keeping track of time, I'm inclined to believe that Mr. Grubb probably isn't that far off with this one. 2029 is quite a far way off, but it isn't as far off as it sounds. I think the world collectively lost track of time at the start of 2020 for reasons mutually understood. But we're in the closing months of 2023 now, it's almost 2024. Still, it's a good 5, if not nearly 6 years away, depending on when in that year it might release, if it isn't later. But that is a good half a decade away, and though it does actually sound logical when you actually listen to what Jeff Grubb is saying, it does feel awfully far away considering we are receiving teasers, and have been receiving teasers, since 2020. And it began with this one at the Game Awards in 2020. Now that wasn't N7 day, so there was no excuse there, but all it really said was, in a vague trailer, that Mass Effect will continue. It wasn't really an actual announcement of a game. It was more of a long-winded promise, and an appreciated one at that, because at that point we had no reason not to believe that Mass Effect Andromeda had killed the franchise. But it's still marketing for a game that is absolutely nowhere near releasing, and instead of go quiet after that point for years, every 7th of November since there has been some kind of teaser, with the most recent showing off in-engine footage and seemingly giving away the odd bit of information here and there about the game that hasn't technically even been announced yet. And these annual teasers come complete with posters and all sorts, with even more information to sap from. And truth be told, Mass Effect fans are being told a lot for how much waiting they're going to need to now do, should the notion of a 2029 release window be accurate anyway. But it wouldn't be outlandish on the basis that not every game franchise out there has a designated unofficial annual holiday like Mass Effect fans do with N7 Day. So BioWare has pressure on them to contribute towards that, and teasers are a way to do it. Furthermore, games these days are not like they used to be. You've got to appeal to investors to a greater degree than ever, as well as fans, and there is striking a balance, and sometimes the public information and the consumer confidence in a project that's nowhere near complete is what gives greater projections that inspires investors to contribute. As a result, you get investors on board. I don't know much about business, why am I talking about this? But secondly, I feel as if it makes sense in my head. So we are seeing increasingly premature announcements and teasers of things, as well as corporate announcements that don't really have that same feel like a cold drop used to. So a lot of things are being announced before they perhaps should be, realistically. Maybe Mass Effect being teased is similar to that situation. All I do know for certain is that if this game won't be releasing until the very end of this decade, I'm not sure at which point the N7 Day teasers are going to get tiresome. You've uncorked the bottle now with that, so people are going to be expecting them, so you can't exactly stop. You can't stop giving the teasers now, because now we'll know exactly what you're doing, but I don't know how you can continue them for that long either. Is there that much to tease? Secondly, knowing this game exists for a very long time before it's out increases expectations exponentially, which is a lot of pressure to have on a studio and on a game that absolutely won't be able to deliver on unrealistic expectations you've worked up in your head over the course of a decade. So that's going to be incredibly challenging, I suppose. I can see that being challenging anyway. I don't have to worry about it. All I have to do is wait for it, sleep, and make videos on other things. So it's important to manage expectations, which is perhaps why this video is important more so than actually sharing the information, in the sense that you need to be in control of your expectations, otherwise it's just going to get carried away, because that's what expectations do. Not always. If you know what you're looking for, and you know what you're after, and you know how to get that, then that's fine. But it also isn't actually that alien, considering, well, what I was thinking would be the projected release window for this next Mass Effect. I was thinking 2026, 2027, and at a push 2028 anyway. So 2029 as a ballpark from somebody who probably knows what he's talking about far more than I do. Doesn't actually sound unrealistic, even though at first it's like, Jesus Christ, that's far off. But though we are receiving these teasers and they do undermine this next part, it is important to remember that the official announcement for this next Mass Effect game is technically yet to occur. It's entirely possible that we could be waiting quite a while to find out what's going on in this much beloved universe. But for now, what we know about the game is it's likely still early in its development. BioWare is currently working on another project that's probably taking priority, considering they'd announced that one in 2018 and it's still nowhere to be seen. There have been staff layoffs at BioWare. I think it's 50 employees, something like that. And they're still hiring for the project. Yeah, it's not tomorrow, is it? As for my thoughts on this, though I'm absolutely going to be exhausted with the notion of N7 Day teasers and things like that a few years down the line, let alone by 2029, even if it isn't actually that far behind it, I think it's fair to say I would rather this game have more time in the oven and turn out to be utterly fantastic than be released too early and fall short of the baseline of expectations. As for the supposed date, 2029, that's a throwaway calculation. It could be sooner, it could be later. The truth is we don't know, but we know that this next Mass Effect game isn't going to be tomorrow, so it realistically could be towards the latter half of this decade and maybe towards the end of it. The truth is we don't know a fixed date for certain. Therefore, it may as well be 2029. The only thing that's important to take away from what Jeff Grubb was saying is the message he was trying to get across, and that is that this game is not close. We knew that anyway, though. But this is no official confirmation. Jeff Grubb knows what he's talking about. There is no denying that, at least in this respect. I mean, I don't know everything he's interested in and how he's received by those audiences and whether or not he's been proven right in other franchises. But when it comes to BioWare games, specifically Mass Effect as the BioWare game that I actually have interest in the past, he seems to be quite on it there. So I'm not going to take what he says as law because it's not BioWare or EA saying 2029. So it's important to remember that. You've also got to remember the intent in which this statement was made, which was just talking bollocks on a podcast. So remember, nothing's official here, it's just logical. It does come across as quite logical, especially when you consider that there's only a core team working on the pre-production of this Mass Effect game. So it is entirely sensible that despite the teasers that we've been receiving, to keep your expectations from going haywire until we get a release date, whenever that might be. But anyway, thanks for watching this ramble. I'm probably going to go off and play that RoboCop game now. I've been having a great time with that. It's a brilliant game. I hope you enjoyed. Be sure to go ahead, leave a like, subscribe, share the channel with your friends, all that wonderful stuff. That would be massively appreciated. And with any luck, hopefully I'll be seeing you all very soon with another video at some point. But until next time, please take care and goodbye.